a devastating diagnosis.
When they find out my diagnosis, they're like, there's no way.
That changes everything for the patient and the people who love them most.
However much I thought I was burnt out, I was so much more burnt out than I could even imagine.
Leading to difficult decisions, questions with few answers, and the search for hope in the simple things.
I'm also lucky because I'm only here when it could be a lot worse.
Tonight, CBS News Miami is illuminating Alzheimer's.
I'm Lauren Pastrana. For 3 years now, CBS News Miami has set out on a journey to better understand Alzheimer's disease. We do it because Miami-Dade County has one of the highest prevalence rates in the entire country. For the next half hour, we're going to share stories of the people on the front lines of this disease and bring you more on some of the breakthroughs. But first, some context. An estimated 7.2 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's. In Florida, almost 900,000 people serve as unpaid caregivers, totaling 1.4 billion hours of care for loved ones. And a recent survey found 79% of people would want to know if they had the disease before showing symptoms. With any disease, the unsung heroes in every household are the caregivers. They're faced with so much: doctor's appointments, unpredictable temperaments, and so much more. It leads to an exhaustion and an isolation only they know. It also leads to emotionally and financially complex decisions. What's the best way to care for a loved one?
For Cindy Maurer, this isn't home.
This is it.
But it is where her heart is.
Hi, honey.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Cindy's husband Charlie lives here in the memory care wing at Harbor Chase, Boynton Beach.
How old was he when he was diagnosed?
60. So he has what's called early onset dementia.
Charlie can't remember much, but he definitely recognizes Cindy. His face lights up when she comes to visit.
There you go. You're welcome, my love.
They go for walks, watch TV, and share meals together. Still the couple that fell in love more than 2 decades ago. They bonded over their love of baseball, both from New York and both Mets fans. Now, with no local family, Cindy found herself in the challenging position of navigating Charlie's diagnosis and handling his care alone.
It was me to make all the decisions.
It's a lonely path, but many are on it. According to the Alzheimer's Association, nearly 12 million Americans provide unpaid care for a family member with dementia. 70% of caregivers say it's stressful, and 66% say they have difficulty finding resources and support for their needs. Cindy spent the first few years after Charlie's diagnosis caring for him at home before making the decision to move him into a memory care facility last September.
I probably should have done that about a year earlier because it was really hard for me that year and hard decision to make because he just got worse, and it becomes a safety issue because he was starting to wander, and because he can't really articulate his name or couldn't use a cell phone to call me. However much I thought I was burnt out, I was so much more burnt out than I could even imagine because you're running on fumes because you just have so many things to do, doctor's appointments, blah, 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 blah.
Cindy couldn't afford full-time care at home, but since she and her husband had long-term care policies through their insurance, moving him into an assisted living community was financially possible. She visits almost daily, but even that doesn't feel like enough to her.
Not that you should, but did you ever feel any guilt to take a moment for yourself?
Yes, still do. Even in here, yeah, still do. Because when I'm not here, I do trust what's going on, but I'm not seeing it. And, I have to hope that I know they're not going to do as good a job as me. It's different worries than when he was at home. But yes, I still feel guilty. Feel guilty on the days I'm not here. Just not being with him because I know how happy he gets. They all tell me he walks around holding my picture. It's heartbreaking all the time.
We'll share more on the resources available and what caregivers need to know later in this half hour. We all want to know what we can do to prevent or slow the progression of Alzheimer's. Research happening every day looks at how modifiable risk factors play a role in our brain health. Things like diet, exercise, and the all-important sleep. A recent study from Yale University shows poor sleep, particularly a lack of deep and REM sleep, accelerates brain shrinkage and increases the buildup of toxic proteins like amyloid beta and tau, both linked to Alzheimer's. And statistics show 1 in 3 adults are not getting enough sleep. So we recently caught up with Amy Daniel. Last year, she shared her story of being diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. Now she's prioritizing rest to protect her brain.
Like many of us, Amy Daniel has a bedtime routine. Brush teeth, wash face, take vitamins. Then it's time for sleep.
Once I got the diagnosis and, took it all in, the first thing I wanted to do was address my poor sleep habits.
Amy's diagnosis is mild cognitive impairment, which can be an early sign of certain neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's disease.
I notice issues with processing, which leads to issues with anxiety. To me, it almost feels like I'm hollow, like I feel like I have nothing up there. It's strange, almost.
When we met her a year ago, she was already making changes, like getting hearing aids. A recent study found 32% of dementias are attributed to hearing loss. But she's really focused on her sleep over the last year.
Having a lot of broken sleep, up at 3 or 4 in the middle of the night, not going back to sleep until 5 minutes before my alarm went off. And I knew that I couldn't function day to day like that.
She takes magnesium supplements now. Some studies show it helps improve sleep quality.
So sleep is very important.
Dr. Peter Glebus is the director of cognitive and behavioral neurology at Baptist Health. He says getting more sleep is something you can do starting today that can have a lasting impact.
We're seeing more and more data about sleep, how sleep is important, because we know physiologically that sleep is very important for memory formation. So when we're sleeping, there is a, let's call it, cleaning system that is of the brain that is more active, and it clears many things, including the amyloid byproducts out of the brain when we're asleep.
Amy's not just stopping with a better night's rest. She's also watching her weight and is currently on a GLP-1 medication. New and ongoing research shows people taking semaglutide have a significantly lower risk of being diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease compared to those on other diabetes medications. Other studies show GLP-1 agonists may actually help reduce the buildup of amyloid plaques and tau tangles in the brain.
We are seeing that reducing inflammation, reducing blood glucose levels, reducing weight is having a positive impact on that. And GLP receptors are found in several areas of the brain. So we're really in an area of sort of unprecedented growth where we're seeing, well, where else can we use these medications?
Come here.
It seems like every day there's new research, a new glimmer of hope that could get us closer to effective treatments and even a cure. Until then, Amy is counting her blessings and doing whatever she can to protect her memories.
I'm also lucky because I'm only here when it could be a lot worse. So I am thankful in that respect.
Are you worried that it will get worse?
I don't think I let myself go there. Just want to focus on doing what I can to stay here and doing everything that I can to make that happen.
When we first set out to dive deeper into Alzheimer's disease almost 3 years ago, we met Suri Velez. Now she's more than 5 years into a clinical trial she hopes will save her brain, but she's still living life to the fullest in the meantime.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Suri Velez looks like your typical working mom.
7 to 5.
Oh, wow.
And it's 10-hour days. I do the invoicing, I collect the payments.
Visitors to Key Largo Campground would never know she has early onset Alzheimer's.
When they find out my diagnosis, they're like, there's no way. There's no way you have anything. You don't show any signs.
But she was, in fact, diagnosed at the age of 52 after watching her father battle the disease and noting her own issues with her memory. Suri credits the lack of signs to the clinical trial she's been part of for the last few years.
Come on in. How was your ride?
Not bad.
It was great.
Last year, we met up with Suri on her weekly drive from the Keys to Miami, 140 miles round trip every Wednesday for her injections.
The shots hurt, so I try not to think about it because I can make myself pass out of fear, and I don't want to do that, so I don't think about it.
It's a blind study, so even after all these years, she doesn't know for sure if she's receiving the medication or a placebo, but she was willing to try anything.
I had to try. Can't just sit and wait till it catches up to me.
And you still don't know if you're getting the medication, but you think you are.
My suspicion is yes, I'm definitely getting it because of how I feel, how I see. I'm not showing the same symptoms that my dad was showing, within 5 years of him being diagnosed. It's different.
Like so many involved in clinical research, Suri is worried funding will one day be cut for this particular trial. She just found out the study she's part of will continue for at least another year, time she's grateful for.
So once the study's over and I'm out of the medication, does that mean I'm back onto the Alzheimer's wagon? What's going to stop it if it's not the medication?
At this point, we just don't know. So for now, she's going to keep on working.
4th of July is coming around the corner.
Which means the campground will be busy, just how she likes it. Studies have found that people who keep themselves more cognitively engaged are 40% less likely to show clinical Alzheimer's symptoms. Suri is determined to keep her mind moving in hopes of delaying this disease for as long as she can.
It's a challenge, it's scary, but at the same time, I don't know, you just can't sit there and just let it beat you. I don't know, I just want to fight.
Suri is adamant that people with a family history should get tested to know their risk. Her siblings all did it, but only Suri came back with the gene. Later in this half hour, I'll have the very personal story of two sisters navigating this testing journey together.
First, symptoms similar to Alzheimer's found in children,
There was always something back in my mind.
leading to a long goodbye,
She closed the door and I told him, she's dying.
to children whose lives were just beginning.
You're telling me that I have 2 years with my daughter.
That's next.
Illuminating Alzheimer's on CBS News Miami is presented by Baptist Health. Welcome to Breakthrough Brain and Spine Care.
Alzheimer's is always associated with the elderly, but there are families out there currently dealing with a diagnosis sometimes referred to as childhood Alzheimer's. We met two Miami parents raising a daughter whose brain is aging in reverse.
Sarah's Land is a safe haven for this 9-year-old girl, a place to jump and read and just be a kid.
When I see her enjoying those moments, it's like I try to stick to them, to remember them, because sometimes it's kind of difficult to deal with what she's going through.
Sara Ruiz Montoya has a very rare, inherited metabolic disorder called mucopolysaccharidosis type 3, more commonly known as Sanfilippo syndrome. Some call it childhood Alzheimer's.
Because it has kind of the same consequences in the body. So it was someone that develops normally for a few years of their life. So Sarah was a regular 3 years old, kind of. And suddenly they start forgetting everything and they start losing all the abilities.
Her path to diagnosis was long and hard fought. She was born full term, but still spent time in the NICU. She met her milestones like walking and talking, but always on the later end of average. And as she got a bit older, she had frequent ear infections and stomach issues. Her mother says her instincts told her to keep looking for answers, which led her to Nicholas Children's Hospital and geneticist Dr. Parul Jayakar.
So it's related to a missing enzyme or a faulty enzyme. And what happens is because this enzyme is missing, it doesn't break down certain substances.
Dr. Jayakar says there are also signs like distinct facial features and coarse hair. Carolina Montoya says the doctor took one look at Sara and knew her diagnosis, an answer after years of questions.
They were going to say to me, don't Google it, which it was already too late, because if you read through all the MPSs, all of them are mortal disease, 100% fatal. So she was almost 4, and in some of the PSs, the life expectancy is until 6. So for me, it was like, You're telling me that I have 2 years with my daughter.
Sara's life expectancy is closer to 15 years, but her parents have recently felt a shift.
Plus, it's pretty obvious lately that she's coming to the last stage of her condition. She used to be a girl that laughed from the moment that she woke up to the moment that she went to sleep. Now you see sometimes that she complains, or she's in pain, or she's calm.
Sara's parents are both carriers for the condition, though they didn't know it at the time. Because there's no treatment or cure, Sanfilippo syndrome is not on the list of things checked for in the newborn screening, though there's a push to change that. And due to its rarity and ethical concerns with testing on children, clinical trials are few and far between, but 2 are happening right now.
I think it's important to be aware of this condition because there are a lot of clinical trials available, and soon I'm hoping there'll be a treatment by the end of this year.
Even though you know it, there's nothing to do. And we still, as we were mentioning, we try to advocate and try, we still, anything we can do to get a cure. Might not be for her, but so no one else has to go through this.
Life looks different than they thought it would. At night, Sara has to sleep in a safety bed. Kids with Sanfilippo tend to sleep less and less as they get older. But for now, she still loves YouTube and music and jumping on her trampoline, just like any other 9-year-old.
I say that their lives is like trying to grab water in your hand. You could try as hard as you want, and you can grasp as hard as you want. It's going to slip away anyway.
Some current research looks into enzyme replacement therapy to possibly help Sanfilippo patients. Sara's parents have decided they would not try that because there's currently no way to repair or reverse the damage already done to her brain. For years, I've told the stories of people coping with the effects of Alzheimer's in our community. And I've mentioned my own connection, but never told my own story because it isn't actually mine to tell. So I sat down with my mother and her sister to reflect on what it was like caring for a mother with Alzheimer's and how that's influenced their very different decisions when it comes to testing for the disease.
So if you go into my table of contents, you'll find all the pictures of Grandma.
Your family tree is more than just a history of where you came from. It can also be a clue into your future health.
I keep very detailed records of everything, the health history of everything that has happened to me.
Martha Brown keeps it all written down. Her sister, Magda Fernandez, keeps it all in her head and her heart.
I knew a lot of her memories, and I'm not going to write down mine in a book for you because I know you want me to do that.
I guess I'm the storyteller in the family. In case you don't note the resemblance, that's my mom and my aunt. Together, they watched their own mother, my grandmother, suffer from Alzheimer's disease, like her mother before her.
And I feel like Grandma Gladys was always a little worried.
She always thought that she was going to suffer from this. Always. She was fearful of that would happen to her because it happened to our grandma, it happened to my grandma's sister, it happened to, but yet my grandma had 2 sisters.
And one sister lived a long life and never developed the disease, which brings us to these sisters. Same family history, but different opinions on whether to get tested. In a major breakthrough, the FDA recently approved a blood test that's supposed to be 92% accurate in detecting signs of Alzheimer's. My aunt decided to take that test.
I had it done, and sure enough, the tau or TAU were elevated. Much higher than what they're supposed to be.
So she had a PET scan of her brain. After a couple stressful days waiting for the results,
Negative scan consistent with sparse to no amyloid neuritic plaques.
Right.
What was the feeling of getting that result?
Oh, it was like, oh, I have a good brain.
Martha will continue to follow up with her doctor as recommended. Magda, on the other hand, has no plans to take the test.
What's your recommendation as far as whether people should be doing these tests?
So for somebody who is asymptomatic, meaning, all of us have a little bit forgetfulness here and there, but I'm talking, for people who, if they get tested, their memory is normal, they're cognitively normal. I actually don't recommend get any, biomarker studies.
Dr. Peter Glebus with Baptist Health says we simply don't have the interventions right now to help the patients before they develop the actual disease. But that could change down the road. And if it does, my mom is open to changing her mind.
If I would start feeling something, that would definitely be big, indicative of, this is not going well. Yes, I will go and do the appropriate things. But right now, to go and have tests that tell me, oh, you might not, no, I'm not there.
A donation to the Alzheimer's Association has been made in memory of Gladys Siner.
In the meantime, they'll continue to honor their mother's memory by living life to the fullest, just like she did.
My mom had such a positive attitude, would always say, there's always a tomorrow. There's always a tomorrow.
Alzheimer's genetic testing can identify specific genes linked to an increased risk of developing the disease, but it cannot definitively confirm or predict a diagnosis. Because they already know their family history, they've opted out of the genetic test, and same goes for me. When we come back, the importance of advocacy, the resources to help families when they need it.
First, supporting those who sacrifice it all for Alzheimer's patients.
It's a complex situation. He is aware of his illness, and he says things like, my brain is not good today.
You don't have to sort of explain to anybody else, what you're going through, because
Giving caregivers the help they need. Next.
Illuminating Alzheimer's on CBS News Miami is presented by Baptist Health. Welcome to Breakthrough Brain and Spine Care.
Being a caregiver for a loved one with Alzheimer's can be stressful, exhausting, and lonely. But the Alzheimer's Association hosts support groups all over South Florida to give people an outlet to vent, grieve, and connect. Here's a candid look in their own words.
My name is Maria. I'm the support group facilitator.
Hi, I'm Lida. And this is my first time in the group. I have a loved one with Alzheimer's, so I take care of that person on the weekends. My free time because I work Monday through Friday.
My name is Hazel again, by the way, and this is my second time to the group, and I can just say that Maria has been, just from that time, she just jumped in trying to give me a support, and unfortunately my daughter passed in 2020. She lived with us, she was 30.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah, she died, and that just sent him...
Yeah.
Literally, we lost him at that point. At this stage, my husband does not talk. He literally walks. This is a funny thing. When I say that he walks, people think, oh, so he can do things for himself. He does nothing for himself.
I often tell caregivers, I kind of see the disease as like a puzzle. There's all these pieces because depending on who you're caring for, right? Like you might be a spouse or a daughter or a sibling or even a friend sometimes, and you're trying to juggle all those things, right? Like what goes here, what goes there, and then somewhere in there is you, right? So it's a lot.
There's a lot of juggling, and so I'm like, I take on the challenge to juggle lots of balls, but at some time it'd be good so I don't get carpal tunnel or juggler's elbow or whatever, just to not have to juggle for a little bit.
You cannot ignore those issues, and you have to train yourself, give the support to the loved one, and take care of your daughter to teach them how to address these issues. So it's a complex situation, and learning about the disease, getting connected with other people helps you a lot. So that brings a lot of clarity in order to move forward.
I can't cure or fix certain things, but I can try to make life as happy and enjoyable as we can. And at least every day she's like, okay, what are we doing today? What are we doing today? So there's energy and drive.
Every time I come, I learn something. So.
And you're not alone in this journey.
Amen. Right. Amen. Right.
We want to stress these meetings are always private. The people you just heard from agreed to let our cameras in to spread awareness about the existence of these types of support groups in hopes of helping others just like them. None of the research and resources we've reported on tonight would be possible without advocacy. And more than 1,000 Alzheimer's Association advocates recently visited Washington, D.C. to urge lawmakers to keep Alzheimer's a national priority. A major focus this year was to stop cuts to Health and Human Services, the CDC, and the National Institutes of Health. Amy Daniel and her daughter, Shayna, were there to share their story.
You know, we do all this advocacy work, and, you know, we go up to legislators and we tell them, like, this could be anybody. And I feel very strongly that, like, we are living proof of that.
If you want to help, Shayna says a good first step is writing a letter to your local congressperson to let them know that funding for Alzheimer's research and resources is important to you. And help is out there. There are some resources to help you navigate an Alzheimer's diagnosis for yourself or for a loved one. Thank you for joining us this half hour as we once again illuminate Alzheimer's. If you'd like to take a look at our reporting over the last 3 years, just head to cbsmiami.com and click on Illuminating Alzheimer's. From all of us here at CBS Miami, have a good night.